The Property Pod. Welcome to The Property Pod with Moneyweb. The property sector is an ever-changing sector, and in this podcast series, your host, Suren Naidu, chats to movers and shakers in the property industry.
Hello and welcome to The Property Pod, South Africa's premier property investor podcast. My name is Suren Naidu, and on this weekly Moneyweb show, we gain insider insights from leading executives, estate agents, analysts, developers and entrepreneurs in South Africa's expansive property industry. Real estate insiders have highlighted the rising demand in SA for versatile and adaptable properties as buyers embrace multi-generational living and seek short-term rental income to boost their earnings. For many, it may be a side hustle or an additional revenue stream in addition to their day jobs. To share some insight now on these trends, in particular the growth in short-term residential rentals, considering where she's based out of, is Alexa Horn, Managing Director of Cape Town-based DG Properties. Alexa, a very warm welcome to the Property Pod.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
We will get to multi-generational living in a bit, but I want to zone in on short-term rentals, especially in the context of Cape Town and the Western Cape market, which has seen a boom in short-term letting through platforms like Airbnb and Bookings.com. How big is the segment of the market now, would you say? Because there's also been comments about this being a big contributor to the spike in property prices in the Western Cape in particular.
Yeah, Suren, it's unbelievable just from our property perspective. We focus on sales and long-term rentals, and we've been inundated with short-term rental requests, so much so that, everything's based on relationship, that we've had to kind of pivot and actually offer this service to our clients. We deal in the high-end property. So in that space, literally, we have families moving out of their homes, renting out their homes on a short-term basis and, planning in advance, and they go for their overseas ski trip. We're having people that are viewing properties with a very specific view in mind to have a guest cottage that they can rent out. So short-term rentals is just, everything's booked out way in advance, and it just seems that it is a demand that, it's just we can't keep up with it at the moment. So it's really forming a huge part of the market in Cape Town. And I speak purely from a Cape Town perspective because I do think we're in a little bit of a bubble here. And what's going on from a tourism perspective, also from, foreigners moving here, a lot of them, for example, I've got a client who's flying in on Thursday for a second viewing. And the brief was they actually viewed the property with their short-term rental agent to kind of get an idea for a feeling of what they can generate from their asset. It's just such a meaningful calculation when working out, what they would like to purchase.
Well, it's not just hybrid working, it's the whole swallows that are coming to Cape Town, as it were.
Absolutely. And I think that COVID really we changed direction, after COVID, because a lot of people came to Cape Town, they came to South Africa, they were based here. I have a recollection of a client of mine in Constantia, and his son was a trader for one of the big companies in the UK, and he was doing video calls from his desk, and he'd kind of closed the curtains so no one could see back at his office that he was in the sunshine, because nobody would know where you are. And certainly since COVID, it's just been rampant, the demand for it. And, I've encountered last summer a lot of German, not families, but groups of families that came out here together in our summer to avoid the European winter. And they were all working from their base. They would rent out a substantial home. And what a pleasure, to be based in Cape Town, to have our beautiful summer and to be carrying on with their work. So it's a trend that's increasing.
Can I ask, how is DG Properties involved in the market within the context of, Airbnb and Bookings.com? How do you service the market in terms of this trend?
So we have a partner that we work with that provides that service. And, whether it's apartments on the Atlantic seaboard or the bigger homes, we can handhold our clients through this and, get them to understand what kind of revenue they can derive. So that's the service we provide to our clients.
I know you highlighted some of the higher part of the market, but I was going to ask who's getting into this market. It seems that it's no longer just the rich property investors who buy into apartment developments to let it out on a short-term rental basis. In your latest press release, you talk about homes and different elements to open up the opportunity for short-term rental.
Well, it's really across the board. We had a very successful development that we sold on the Atlantic seaboard in Sea Point called Station House. And it's astonishing. A lot of the units were bought for investment purposes. And, the short-term rentals derived from those properties, it's staggering. And it's across the board. It's people, I think, property is always just such a favorite in terms, as an asset class because people understand it. When they purchase the property, they can get a very clear, work out what the potential to derive from an income perspective. And it's an asset class that people are very comfortable with. Sometimes you talk to people about shares or whatever, depending on, who they are and what their understanding is. Sometimes people don't relate to that. But, people love the tangibility of property, the bricks and mortar. And when you can get a very clear estimation based on other sort of apartments and apartment block, it's not a guess, it's not a thumbsuck, it's actually based on actuals. They get a very clear understanding and they're more likely to purchase that property if they can glean what they can earn from it.
From your expertise, what advice would you give a home buyer or property investor looking to invest in a property that they want to get additional income from through short-term letting of the property?
I would always say, from an investment perspective, you've got to look at what income you'll derive. You won't necessarily buy something that you would want to stay in yourself. You've got to look at the opportunity. And there I would really, seek advice from people in the know. So, your agent that is facilitating the sale, really quiz on actuals insofar as what rental income is being derived. The long-term rentals are easy to establish, but I've recently gone through an exercise with a client of mine to do a comprehensive report on, what occupancy will be over the year, what they can realistically, and one has to be conservative, what they can realistically hope to attain in a calendar year from a rental perspective.
Can you share some pros and cons on short-term letting and what are some of the best options to consider? Because you also highlight in that release that short-term letting versus long-term letting, there is a benefit in terms of getting higher revenues.
Absolutely. On your long-term rentals, you do a full risk analysis on your client. You get their credit rating and, it's less wear and tear. So, and that's also the analysis you have to do at the outset when you're analyzing, should I purchase this property from an investment perspective? You've got to measure up what your long-term return is and what you could derive on a short-term basis. And it's risk reward. On a short-term basis, you face the risk of people not looking after your property adequately. You can fully vet your long-term tenant, but it is a bit riskier on the short-term basis. But, there are ways and means of screening clients, going into their history, looking at their reviews. So all those steps are also quite important in risk mitigation.
Besides short-term rentals where you can generate income, tell us about this new trend on multi-generational living. I know I'm jumping from one topic to the other, but on that side, it's almost the reverse of the coin where you're talking about, people investing and looking for not additional revenue streams, but ways to save, as it were.
Absolutely. So we encounter this quite often, and we have numerous clients looking for larger properties where they can build sort of a compound for their family. And why not? You know, a lot of families, they want to be together. They've got that security. It takes a village to raise a child. So, you know, based together, it's been done very successfully in Upper Constantia and Bishop's Court, with families building main family home for parents, and they build a home for their children. They have their grandchildren close by. And a lot of people are looking for these types of opportunities. That's on the high end, but across the board, it makes sense to kind of pool resources to make sure that you have all the off-the-grid options available to you. And I think also, particularly in Cape Town, we have a lack of secure living. So if you create something where your family is, you can secure it. You know, you've got off-site monitoring. You can make sure it's a safe and secure place for you and your family. Security estates are very popular, with a lot of people moving down from Joburg and increasingly from KZN. And we just don't have enough security estates for the demand. So lots of people looking for bigger spaces where they can build multiple homes. What is also really added to this trend is the possibility now, and it's been in place for quite a while, of sectionalization. So what one can do is build up to 3 homes on one earth. So that really helps and is obviously added to this increase in this trend.
I actually was going to end on that note, talking about gated communities and multi-generational living. In fact, I think it's the head of IFA in South Africa was talking about exactly that with the North Coast gated property. So it clearly seems that a lot of property companies are looking at the opportunities around this, especially on gated estates. So there could be quite a boom even in gated estates, one would think.
Absolutely. You're spot on.
A further boom, rather.
Yeah.
Okay. Alexa, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it on the Property Pod.
Absolute pleasure.
That was Alexa Horn, Managing Director of Cape Town-based DG Properties.
Thanks for listening to the Moneyweb Property Pod with Suren Naidu. To listen to more episodes, go to moneyweb.co.za or the Moneyweb app and follow Moneyweb News for daily updates. Follow Suren on Twitter @Suren Naidu for more of his property industry content and other business stories. The Property Pod.